Chapter 11. Chances. The groups for the expeditions were formed. Because of the time factor, they only gave themselves 2 days to prepare for the journeys. There were 3 ships leaving with the children of the Law of One. One was headed east to the land of Sade, a country which was primarily of a black race. ATLATIA had done some trading with these people, but only in recent years. Another ship was headed south to Oz, a country very primitive and relatively uninhabited. The last went to the west to Og. This country was too primitive and sparsely inhabited, but most similar to the physical characteristics of ATLATIA. The people of Alta had gathered their finest craftsmanship, rugs, pottery, paintings, and sculpture. They took everything they felt was representative of ATLATIA. They also took with them seeds for planting, so they could begin crops in the new land. They even took whole plants and trees to replant them. The ships were also laden with substantial supplies of fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Being a vegetarian society, and since they considered eating the flesh of another being barbaric, they also took with them cows and goats for a supply of milk and dairy products. The people also took tools, architecture plans, plumbing, etc., knowing they would have to teach the primitive cultures all of the characteristics of civilization. As there would be no power from the generators for some of the conveniences they had in ATLATIA, they took antiques that would require no power, but only manual operation. Physical labor was something that they knew they would have to become used to in these new lands. The things were secretly stowed aboard the ships, for it was strictly forbidden for them to leave the country. The sons of Belial liked their slaves, and were not about to give up them for their freedom. Those of the Law of One were sympathetic to their plight, and would seize any opportunity to help the poor things. Atlas, who was in charge of these expeditions, chose ships that could be adaptable to primitive propulsion just in case before they returned, in case the fire crystal wasn't operational. They would then be able to maneuver the ship by wind power or fossil fuels. He tried to equally divide the mathematicians, scientists, teachers, and all other professionals on the ships. It was imperative for them to take as much knowledge to all areas. They would be starting a new life, a new culture, a new society in a new land. It was an awesome thought, especially in light of the predicted events to come. They had no way of knowing how this would affect these new lands. They knew they would be safe there, but it also presented to them unforeseen obstacles. Nearly everyone was optimistic about their journey. Excitement was rising as the time drew near. On the day of the departure, those of the ones celebrated, seeing their friends preparing to leave. People laughed and people cried. Some loved ones were being separated, and many didn't know if they would see each other again. There was no way to know if the ship would return before the destruction. Emotions ran high for almost everyone, including Oron and I. We went to the airship dock to say farewell to our friends. It was exciting in some respects because our friends were setting out to new lands, and we would be beginning an important mission. On the other hand, it was rather scary. We had no idea when the destruction that had been predicted would occur, whether it would happen before or after the launch. We stood on the dock, bidding our friends a safe voyage. Oren gave his friend Atlias a hug. "To what country do you go, Atlias?" "My group shall go to the east, to Sade." "When you return, Esser and I shall have the records ready for your final journey." Even as he said it, the thought passed through his mind that we might not make it. We were going to try desperately to stop Battalion from creating any more nuclear testing sites and conducting any more tests which would be instrumental in this destruction. But were we already too late? He didn't know. So much was happening that we couldn't control. The launch was the major threat. Oren and I hoped that this wasn't the last time we would be seeing our friend. Our hearts go out with you, my friend. Oren waved as Atlias walked up the ramp to the ship. "And ours with you, Oren. Be careful. I sense that yours is the more difficult mission." Atlias slipped into the crowd of people on deck and soon became just another head bobbing through the crowd boarding the ship. It seemed only minutes had passed when the engines of the aircraft revved, ready to take off. Oren and I, with flocks of other people, waved as the 3 airships took their turn around the runway. As the giant bird-like crafts took off on the red ray of light, the crowd erupted with cheers. I, who had been quiet through the festivities, was thinking about something else. Tonight was the night. I would try to destroy the plans for the invisibility dome. I also had other plans. I wanted to destroy the nuclear centers. Both the Tuituit and myself had spent countless hours in the last 2 days preparing for this night. She had given me as much information concerning the layout of the lab and the computers as she could. Also, she directed me where I could find the information that I needed to destroy. I hoped it was enough. I had no problem assuming the role of the mindless servant. I pushed my broom slowly down the hall so as not to bring attention to myself from the guards. When I reached the lab, it took a great deal of control to keep from rushing inside and doing my job. I had to be careful, and that meant being extremely cautious. If I was caught, there was no way of knowing to what extremes Patelin would go. When I finally reached the lab, I closed the door and cautiously peered into the hallway, making sure that nobody was watching before I entered. I carefully opened the inside room where my friends and I had heard Patelin only a few nights ago. I let out a sigh, and when I saw the room was empty, quickly I found the computers that Tuituit had told me would hold the plans that I was about to destroy. I was thankful for Oren's instructions and computers as I tried to access the file where the plans were hidden. It wasn't easy. It seemed as though Patelin was playing it safe. The only way to get into the file was by secret code. Tuituit had warned me of this possibility. We had gone over several codes that I might use. I tried them all. Zeus, nuclear, Patelin, none seemed to work. I decided to use my own. I tried power. Much to my amazement, the file opened up on the Zeus Nuclear Center. There it was before me. My heart beat faster. Just as I was about to delete the file, I heard a noise behind me. I turned my head. It was Amaziah. He was on me in a flash. I didn't have a moment to delete the file, although I tried while we struggled. I threw Amaziah down. Before Amaziah could get up, I hit the delete button, but I wasn't sure if it completed its function. Amaziah was on me again and again. I pushed him down to the ground. This time, to be sure, I picked up one of the marble benches and threw it into the great central computer, hoping that I had destroyed not only the Zeus plans, but all the nuclear center information and hopefully the launch information. No sooner had the computer erupted in flames than I was attacked from behind. It was Helm. Now both Helm and Amaziah struck me from all sides. 2 is more than I could handle. Helm violently kicked me as Amaziah held me down. He continued this torture to my face, neck, stomach, and groin until I lay limp on the floor. Back at Oren's residence, Oren and Tuituit nervously waited. Oren paced the floor. Where is he? It's late. He should have been here. Tuituit was also concerned, but tried not to let on. We must believe that he is all right. I know that Esser will do what he must. Yes, I'm sure he will, but these are dangerous men who will do anything to accomplish their quest for power. Tuituit walked over and tried to calm him down. She took his hand. He will be all right, Oren. We must have faith. Come, pray with me. They knelt down together, bowing their heads. Tuituit softly prayed, Please protect Esser and bring him home safely to us. The night breeze was warm as it blew through the countryside. It was the only sound besides the sound of shuttle hovering off back towards the bright lights of Alta. I found myself in a very desolate place, where only those creatures of the wild lived. Nobody traveled in this part of the country. There was no need. The soil was not good for planting, and there was no town in this direction. Tonight the shuttlecraft only came here to dump a body. They thought it was dead or close enough. Here in this deserted place, it would be dinner for the scavenger beasts in the forest. The body lay motionless in the brush. It was me. It was true. I was close to death. The pain that seared through my body was more than I could bear. Worse than the burning of my wings. My body was bloodied from head to toe. Amazingly, I was conscious. As I lay there looking out on the desolate countryside, I could only think of Miram and prayed that she somehow could hear my thoughts from such a distance. I had no idea how far I was from the city, but I knew I wasn't close. One thing I was sure of was that if nobody found me soon, I would be dead by morning. Desperately, I tried to reach Miram. I thought, if you can read my thoughts now, Miram, now is the time. I feel I am dying. The pain overcame me. I passed out before I could try sending her another thought. With no more than a few seconds, A mysterious ball of light appeared from nowhere. Its luminescence was beautiful. I opened my eyes. From the ball came Miram's voice. "I am here, my beloved Esser." The light got bigger and bigger. In an instant, Miram appeared from the light and stood over me. "I shall always be there for you." I tried to lift up my body. "How did you?" Miram knelt down beside me and held me in her arms. "Don't talk now." She held me tightly, and the two of us became light, a beautiful ball of light, and then it disappeared. Miram had transported herself and me back to the Temple of Beauty, where she would heal me. It wasn't unusual for priests of power to create such a magical feat. It wasn't magic at all. It was her power of faith and the tapping of the Source of One. It was never done for entertainment, but for the purpose of life. Now she had proposed to save me. I looked totally helpless, my body lying bloodied on the table. My feathers, once a shiny white on my chest, were now dark red with blood. Miram took her harp and with melancholy sang, "Shoram Shem, Shoram Faro, Shoram Omala, Shoram Omola, Shoram Shem, Shoram Faro, Shoram Omala, Shoram Omala." Before her, the green lights healed my body. My feathers disappeared. When my eyes opened, she stopped singing. She got up from her seat at the harp and took my hand. "I'm very glad you are with me." I gave her a smile. "Me too." Slowly I sat up. I noticed the absence of my tail. It felt strange. "You saved my life." "Thank you. Why? How?" "What of you? Didn't you save us from another oblivious nuclear center?" "Yes, I hope I did." I took her hand affectionately. "Thank you again for saving my life and giving me my manhood." I looked into her blue eyes and the love poured from my heart. "Now I can tell you, I love you." Miram smiled. "And why not before?" "I have loved you for many lives, Esser." Her words surprised me. "We shall be together always." It was like I was dreaming. This whole evening had been unreal, and now with what I was hearing from her lips was incredible. However, another part of me knew what she was saying. We had been together before. She was a part of me, and I was a part of her. I had really always known. It wasn't until this moment that I realized we shall always be as one. Always. We embraced for the first time in this lifetime, but we both knew that we had found the other part of ourselves that we once had forgotten existed. I had never felt so good, so complete. Sale entered the chamber and told us that Oren and Etude were waiting quite impatiently outside. I jumped off the table, finding my balance off, unused to being without a tail. "This is going to take a little getting used to," Miram offered her hand. "It's a very lovely hand, but I want to do it myself." She smiled, knowing that I would be all right now. Oren and Etude had been in a frenzy worrying about me. Sale had gone to Oren's home to let him know that I was with Miram and that I had been hurt. When I arrived, I told them of my evening's ordeal, including the destruction of the main computer, not knowing what effect that had on the nuclear power plants. Etude informed us that the computer housed only information for the nuclear center, and that the launch information, although programmed into that computer, would have an alternate file in another main computer located in another part of the lab, a fact that she had carelessly neglected to tell me. We had to find out if the files had been totally destroyed and how to prevent the launch. Etude would find out the status of the files the next day. We had to take one day at a time.